about you guys, but I'm tired of the advice, learn the color wheel. Not because it's bad advice, but because that often feels like the only advice you get. Like, okay, warm colors, cool colors, saturation, values, complementary split, triadic, gotcha, great, awesome. Now what? Howdy hey, I'm Ray, and I'm a little convinced that when it comes to color theory that everyone is screaming and crying and making it up. Because that's what I do, at least. But today I thought I'd share my process of figuring out the next steps to studying color. And I'm still learning, so don't take this as gospel or anything, but maybe my ideas will give you some ideas. As per my REA method that I shared in my Spider-Verse video, the first part in any study that I do is always replication. And the characters I'll be replicating are from today's sponsor, Visions of Mana. We'll talk more about them later, only thing you need to know right now is that this game looks gorgeous and I crave its knowledge. First character I did was Val. He's our game's protagonist, he's very curious and optimistic and dedicated and sweet. He is my sweet, sweet boy. His colors look like things I would pick naturally, so whatever I learn here is probably stuff I can reuse often. Like, look at that, that's my favorite shade of red right there. But also, his hair's really cool with how it's such a warm shade of orange, but the shadows lean more towards cool tones and sometimes shift all the way to purple, and that looks great. I want to do that. So I picked out some screenshots with him in various different lightings that I liked, and I'm going to straight up copy them. In my personal experience, I find that observing stuff is great, but taking the time to manually either recreate it and/or literally write down my observations are the extra steps that I need to actually process it. I started by completely eyeballing the colors. No color picking, no layer modes, just me and the color wheel doing our best to recreate the same colors as accurately as I can. Asterisk, except for the fact that I'm translating fully shaded 3D models into comparatively simple cell shading with a couple gradients. So of course I'd have to take a couple liberties. I like injecting a little of my own style into my studies anyway. I think that makes it easier for me to imagine how I could work what I'm learning into my personal art. And you can see me doing stuff like that through how I color my line art. When I was completely finished with all of my versions, I arranged my reference images in about the same spot so I can do true side-by-side comparisons. And the first thing I noticed was that my proportions were off, which is okay, because this study is just about colors. But I bet you anything I could make a video about practicing proportions alone. We might have to come back to that someday. Otherwise, I was comparing the colors and the values. And not only do my colors definitely look way more saturated, but I was clearly too timid when it came to the darkest values. So I need to be more conscious of the darker, muddier colors. My second attempt I did Karina. She's a dragonid with the most darling country accent. I just love hearing her talk. She's got a really nice palette as well. I'm especially infatuated with the orange to purple to blue ombre on the inside of her hair. But also, her hair is similar enough to Val's that I can compound my work here, really do some study maxing. Picking just a couple reference images for her was hard because she looks great in everything. I ended up also redrawing one of her official reference images instead of a third screenshot because I thought it would help me sort out how to translate the shifts in the shades in her hair. I was still mostly eyeballing the colors with her, but this time I let myself check my work immediately by painting the color I chose over my reference to see how close I was. And if I don't get it spot on, I'll try a few more times to adjust and test my color so I can attempt to work out exactly what it is for myself. Usually I can figure it out in a few attempts, but if a color is giving me trouble for more than a couple minutes, then I'll pull out the color picker and just make sure to pay attention to the difference between my guess and the answer. And quite honestly, sometimes it's ridiculous. Sometimes that pest zaps all the way across the square. What? How? All of this to say, I'm doing everything I can to be as conscious of how the colors are actually changing across the piece, and especially how the colors shift as they fall into shadows. This works even better if you can do it without listening to background noise, because as nice as it is to keep us occupied, it is a distraction. But that's scary. I checked my piece after finishing, just like I did with Val, and this time my colors and values were both much more accurate. I think if I wanted to be extra thorough here, it would be good to do another study where I just eyeballed the colors again without testing them. But we have deadlines to meet, and much more to draw before this study is over, so we're gonna move on. I really liked how both of these turned out, especially Karina. I'm absolutely taken with her. But they're just isolated characters. Environments have huge effects on lighting and how colors present themselves, so I would like to continue my studies with that. And it helps that the environments in Visions of Mana are just as gorgeous as the characters, since they've so kindly sponsored this video. Visions of Mana is a brand new title in Square Enix's famous Mana series. The series of Mana, if you will. A classic collection of action-oriented JRPGs that have been capturing the hearts and imaginations of RPG fans for over 30 years. I say collection, but that's only in name. Visions of Mana is more than capable of standing on its own, even without being familiar with previous games. But returning fans are in for a treat with some familiar faces. Our protagonist Val is the appointed soul guard for the new Alm of Fire, his childhood friend Hina, on their journey to the Mana Tree. The role of an Alm is to offer their souls to the Mana Tree to rejuvenate the flow of mana to different parts of the world, but Hina still has a life to live. Through adventures with friends met along the way, they will start to see the truths about the world. Must they accept their fates? The Mana series is known for its deeply emotional narratives and its viciously adorable monsters. In coming-of-age stories where quirky characters go on adventures. In a semi-open field that's vibrantly colorful, you can explore about as far as you can see and harness the powers of elementals to get there. Ride winds, stop time, all sorts of elemental triggers out in the vast world for you to discover to help you explore and solve puzzles that you'll encounter along the way. The combat system has also been completely reworked to include elemental vessels, powerful mystical artifacts that can be equipped to any of your playable characters to change their class and battle style. Mix and match and see what works for you. At the time of recording this, only the demo is available, so I can't wait to find out the twists and turns of the story, but seeing as it's a JRPG, I personally am left to assume that in true JRPG fashion, you will fight God at the end. Can't wait to see which one. Comment your guesses, so curious. I did play through the demo with a couple of my team members for research purposes, and it was a great time. We loved the creature designs, we learned a new word.
The lunar globe is ensorcelled. Pressing art. The lunar globe is ensorcelled. I love ensorcelled.
Ensorcelled. I've never heard this word. But I was mainly focused on the visuals. The environment was clearly crafted with the characters' designs in mind. Like, Val has different outfits to go with his different powers, and the wind outfit is this really nice blue one which looks great against all the snow, but then there's also a bunch of orange plants around that incorporate the orange of his hair into the world and make it look more harmonious. Oh, it's great! And there's clever stuff like this everywhere in the overworld, so for the next step of my studies, I wanted to test out some thumbnails inspired by various scenes in the demo footage. Normally, I'd like to be able to fully redraw a couple scenes with backgrounds first to study from, but again, my time was limited, so I wanted to skip ahead to the part of my studies where I inject more of my own sensibilities. So it was time for step 2 of my studying process, expansion. Throwing something new but similar into my studies so I gained more flexibility while putting what I've learned into practice. It was hard for me to deviate from the source material at first, but after taking a break to do some studies of more cinematic compositions, I started to figure it out. The biggest thing was deciding how to arrange all the background elements and picking a light source so that your attention would easily be drawn to the two characters, which primarily came down to zooming out really far and making sure the scene was still readable just by the values. I was feeling pretty good about my ability to iterate and improve on my drafts by the end. Like, compare this first attempt to this last one, this is crazy to me. From here, I was able to choose my 2 favorites to take to the final studying phase, application. Here, I just make my own piece with everything I learned, and this is where I will info dump to you all exactly what those things were, in no particular order. One of my biggest takeaways involves something that I was told in one of the only actual art classes I've ever taken. It was for acrylic painting, and my teacher told me that I didn't have enough ugly colors. That in order for your beautiful colors to look beautiful, you need those quote-unquote ugly colors there to compare them to. And to be perfectly clear, what I mean by ugly colors are the darker, muddier, desaturated ones. I surely heard him when he said this, and it's been on my mind all these years, but I feel like it hadn't truly resonated with me until now. Striking that proper contrast is not only super important, but there's a real beauty to scarcity. As it turns out, I really like compositions where 90% of the shots are these dark, muddy colors, and it draws your eyes right to these 10% saturated pops. If that contrast is done well enough, then your mind tells you all of these colors are beautiful. Not because they're all individually pretty, but because they work hard to complement each other. I notice this when shading the golds too. When I think about gold, I think of this shiny, brilliant thing, and I always want to grab a really pretty yellow to represent it. But it's actually pretty dull and dark. The way that colors reflect against it is kinda gross, and the places where it literally shines are limited. But those sudden shifts to saturation are what makes gold look so gorgeous. Speaking of, metallic objects are not the only ones that catch bounce light. Everything does, even matte colors. They all interact and mix together. Karina's pink dress starts becoming more purple the closer it gets to the blue inside of her hair and her blue tassels. The inside of her pink skirt also starts shifting to purples and gray blues because of her blue petticoat thingy. Incorporating the neighboring colors into your shading goes a long way to make everything look harmonious. In real life, colors have a lot of depth because of this bouncing off of each other, and stuff like translucency. Skin has red hues because of the blood underneath it, and the amount of blood under skin changes the way that it looks. People looking pale and ashen when blood rushes out of their face, or blushing when the blood rushes in. I think the easiest way to capture the depth of colors like this is with painting, especially traditional painting, but I do cell shading. I like to keep my stuff more cartoonish and simple, so one of the ways I try to capture the depth of colors is with how I color my line art. Even if it's only a little extra color, it's added context, and colors are famous for depending on context. It's why you see all those TikToks of people color picking something and going, wow, how is this the same color? That's context, babe! The answer is always context. You will see colors differently from whatever color it truly is based on the ones surrounding them. This goes hand in hand with needing ugly colors to complement your pretty ones. It's all context. Also, I mentioned earlier that I personally try not to use layer modes. Let me be clear, I do still use them. Layer modes aren't the enemy, they aren't cheating. I try to avoid them mostly while studying so I don't rely on them, but they're just as much of a tool in your arsenal as anything else. If you're going to use layer modes, the best thing you can do is experiment and get intimately familiar with how each one works, so you know what you like and which layer modes will help you achieve your desired results. I personally get the most use out of color burn and color hue and saturation. Color burn is like a more aggressive multiply, so you'll have to be careful with her. She will saturate and she will be mean about it, but I kinda like when girls are mean to me. And I use color, hue, and saturation when trying to make things more cohesive, like picking a blue from the piece and adding a blue mask on color with a low opacity to incorporate that blue more into the rest of the palette, or even just one or two other colors. Aside from those, I probably use overlay and screen the most when trying to lighten something, but again, you should totally test these out for yourself if you're curious and find the time. Get a bunch of different base colors and test how applying different colors with different layer modes on top of them looks. Test the difference between using color burn with a gray brown and a bright brown, a gray blue and a bright blue. Test your lightest colors versus your darkers on multiply. Test how differently they turn out, how your darkest colors look with overlay. Just start throwing things at the wall, go nuts. You can probably see me shifting between color and grayscale while working sometimes. I do this by adding a completely white layer to the very top and setting it to color. This makes it so that all you can see of your piece is the values, and I do this to make sure that my values are still readable. Colors give you a lot of things to keep track of, so turning the colors off for a bit can help me gather my bearings, if that makes sense. I also like zooming out pretty far to test if those different values are still readable, even when I can't see it very well. In fact, staying as zoomed out as possible while drawing is a generally goated digital art tip. I love treating my digital art like a sketchbook. There's a good chance if you're zooming in super close to detail something that it's a detail that people are going to miss anyway, so nobody's gonna be mad at you for not making art that's perfect even when zoomed into 4000%. And finally, when it comes to shading or adding highlights, I almost always shift the hue as well as the value and saturation. Generally, I'll make the colors cooler with the shading and warmer with the highlights, but I'm sure you could find a reason for going the other way around. I don't know, it's art. It's lawless out here. You can do whatever you want forever. So these are the two final illustrations I made based on all these studies. Couldn't be happier with these. I feel like I definitely got a lot more out of the experience and feel much more fulfilled by the work here than if I had just tried to figure everything out by myself at the start. This was fun. Let's study together again sometime. Thank you so much to Visions of Mana for sponsoring this video. By the time this video is going up, the game will have just been fully released. Please give it a try on PS4 and 5, Xbox Series X and S, Windows, and Steam. I promise you'll have fun. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons for making my videos and my ability to work with a team possible. $2 a month gets you access to everything I post, like works in progress for our videos and personal art of mine, which I have clearly been getting back into. $5 a month gets you access to our twice monthly Patreon exclusive live streams, and $10 a month gets your name at the end of my videos just like this. Hope you're all having a great day, and I'll see you later.